All right, so we're diving into Elif Shafak's The 40 Rules of Love.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, this book, it's, well, it's more than just a typical love story, you know?
It really is. It goes so much deeper. You've got these two narratives, right? Ella in the present day, and then you've got Rumi's story from centuries ago.
Yeah, and the way Shafak brings them together, a modern story with one from so long ago, that's what makes it really special.
Absolutely.
So we've got Ella living a pretty, I don't know, comfortable life, maybe even a little predictable. And then she stumbles upon this manuscript, this novel called Sweet Blasphemy. Have you ever felt like something was missing, even when everything seemed, I don't know, fine on the surface?
Totally.
That's Ella's wake-up call.
It's like that feeling of searching for something more, something deeper. And that's something that connects people across time, you know? Rumi, he had success and all that, but he grappled with that same feeling. It's pretty amazing how Shafak uses their stories, Ella and Rumi's, to show how universal that human experience really is.
It's like she's saying, no matter who you are or when you lived, we're all searching for that something more, aren't we?
Exactly.
And for Rumi, that something more, well, it arrives in a pretty unexpected way. It's Shams of Tabriz, this wandering dervish who basically challenges everything Rumi thought he knew.
Yeah.
I mean, instead of just laying down the law, Shams embodies a whole different way of thinking. He drinks wine out in the open, questions like everything about traditional Islam. He turns Rumi's world upside down.
He does, and that's actually a core part of Sufism, which Shafak weaves into the whole novel. Shams, he really embodies this idea that true faith, it comes from your own experiences, not blindly following rules. He's pushing Rumi and us as readers to look beyond what we think we know and find a deeper truth.
It's like he's saying, don't just take my word for it. Go out and find out for yourself. He's not afraid to ruffle some feathers.
Exactly. He challenges those assumptions.
And he does it in such a, I don't know, bold way. There's this scene where he defends a prostitute from an angry mob. It's not just about religion, is it? It makes you think about who we decide is worthy of compassion and who we choose to judge.
You're right. It's about challenging those societal norms, those easy judgments we make. And it goes back to that Sufi idea of seeing the divine in everyone, no matter who they are or what they've done. That's a powerful message, and it goes way beyond just one religion.
So both Ella and Rumi, they're at these crossroads, right? Ella's questioning everything because of this manuscript and this author she's connecting with. And Rumi, well, he runs into Shams, who throws everything he thought he knew out the window.
Yeah.
It's no wonder this book is called The 40 Rules of Love. It's like Shafak is telling us to buckle up
Oh.
because it's going to be a wild ride.
Definitely. And what's so interesting is how being shaken up like that, how questioning everything, it can actually help you grow. Both Rumi and Ella have to face their own assumptions and really look inward.
Makes you wonder, what would happen if we all had a Shams shake things up in our lives?
Right.
Yeah, it's like they say, sometimes change is the only thing you can count on. And with Rumi and Ella, change definitely comes knocking. They're both facing these big challenges because of these, well, let's just say unusual encounters. But Shams, he's not just trying to shake things up for no reason, is he? He's got a plan, right?
Oh, absolutely. He's got a purpose. Take his teachings about love, for example. He doesn't shy away from the tough stuff.
Yeah, the whole love and loss thing.
Exactly. He's saying you have to embrace all of it, the highs and the lows. He really challenges that, that romanticized idea of love. True love, the kind that changes you, it has both joy and pain, those bright spots and the shadows too.
That's not always easy to hear, is it? I mean, we all love a happy ending.
Right, but Shams would say that going for only the good parts of love is like, I don't know, it's like just reading the back of the book.
Yeah.
You get the gist, but you miss all the details, the good and the bad, the stuff that makes it real.
It reminds me of that story Shams tells about Moses, where he stumbles upon a shepherd praying, and it's not exactly traditional, the shepherd's prayer. It's full of things some people might even call,
Blasphemous.
yeah. But the amazing thing is that God actually gets upset with Moses for criticizing the shepherd.
Mm.
God tells Moses that he prefers those heartfelt prayers, even if they're unconventional, over ones set out of, like, just rote obedience. It's like the message is, don't get so caught up in the rules that you miss the heart of it all.
Exactly. And that's what I love about how Shafak writes this. It's not about pushing one religion or another. It's about using these stories, these metaphors, to help us understand those bigger truths that we all grapple with. Love, faith, what it means to be human. It's all in there.
It's about that real connection, being willing to put yourself out there and accepting that sometimes things are messy. And speaking of messy and real, let's talk about Rumi becoming a poet. Here he is, this scholar, this respected teacher, and then boom, He meets Shams, and suddenly he's pouring his heart out in these poems. What happened?
It's like Shams unlocked something within him. Remember how we were talking about Sufism and knowing yourself? That's a big part of it. Rumi's relationship with Shams, it helps him find this whole new way to express himself. It's not just through scholarship anymore, it's through this raw, powerful poetry.
And it's not just the poetry. There's the sima, too. The whirling dance of the Mevlevi dervishes. Have you ever seen it? Those flowing white robes, the way they spin, arms outstretched.
It's mesmerized.
What physical representation of their spiritual journey.
Absolutely. And each part of it has meaning. The whirling, it represents the planets around the sun, the open arms that surrender to something bigger than themselves. It's a great example of how Shafak takes all these different forms of expression and weaves them together to show just how complex love and spirituality can be.
Makes you wonder how we can find new ways to express our own truths, doesn't it? But this journey, it's not always easy, is it? Rumi's relationship with Shams, well, it causes some waves.
You're right. Not everyone is happy with Shams and his, shall we say, unconventional ways. His personality rubs some people the wrong way. It creates tension not just for Rumi, but for his family and followers, too.
Yeah, his son Aladdin, he's not a fan of Shams at all. He thinks he's a bad influence on his father.
And then there are all those rumors flying around.
Oh, I know. People whispering about Shams, calling him a heretic, a sorcerer, even a secret assassin. It gets intense.
It's like their connection, their love, it's seen as this threat.
A threat to everything people thought they knew.
Exactly. Shams, he represents change, and not everyone's ready for that. And that leads us to the turning point in the novel, the event that turns Rumi's world upside down, Shams' disappearance.
Gone, just like that.
It's this devastating loss, and no one really knows what happened, which makes it even harder. It forces Rumi to face the fact that nothing lasts forever, and that sometimes love means learning to live with absence.
So we have Rumi trying to cope with this huge loss, his entire world shaken up. But what about Ella? Where does her story fit into all of this? So Rumi's left grappling with this huge loss, his whole world feels turned upside down, and then there's Ella. She's got her own thing going on, right? Forbidden desires, questioning her whole life. It's a lot to handle. What's a modern woman to do with all these ancient parallels swirling around her?
It's like she's living out a modern version of Rumi's story in a way. Those same timeless questions, love, loss, what it all means. Remember, she's been so caught up in Rumi's world while diving deep into her own connection with Aziz, the author of Sweet Blasphemy.
Right. And those emails they're sending back and forth, wow, talk about bearing your soul.
Yeah.
It's like their own modern-day poetry, don't you think? But they can't just stay in cyberspace forever, can they?
And they don't. Ella takes the leap and actually meets up with Aziz, flies all the way to Boston. It's a big deal for her, breaking out of her comfort zone like that. But it shows just how much Rumi and Sham's story has gotten to her. Like she's ready to try a different way of living, a little less conventional.
So she's got her own Shams, her own moment of truth. Does she throw caution to the wind and run off with him?
Well, that's where Shafak throws us a bit of a curveball. Ella, even with how intense things are with Aziz, she chooses to go back home to her husband.
Really? After all that, the longing, the soul-searching, after practically following in Rumi's footsteps.
I know, it's unexpected. But I think it speaks to something deeper that Shafak's trying to get across. See, Ella realizes that her connection with Aziz, as powerful as it was, it served its purpose. It woke her up, challenged her, showed her a different way to experience love. But it doesn't have to mean blowing up her whole life.
So like one of those whirlwind romances, burns bright but can't last.
In a way. But it doesn't mean it was meaningless. Ella realizes she can take those lessons, that growth she experienced, and bring it back to her life, her marriage even. She doesn't have to abandon everything to find happiness. It's more about bringing that new awareness, that openness to the relationships she already has, even if it means having some tough conversations, facing some hard truths.
That's a really powerful message, especially these days when everyone's looking for the one and that fairy tale ending. Maybe it's more about the journey, how you grow along the way, than finding some perfect ending.
Exactly. That's a big part of what the 40 Rules of Love is all about. True love, it's not about finding someone to complete you. It's about becoming more whole yourself, so you can share that with someone else, however that looks. It's about seeing that love can pop up in unexpected places, and even those fleeting connections can leave a mark on you.
Kind of like Rumi and Shams. Shams is gone, but the love, those teachings, they never leave Rumi. They change his poetry, his whole outlook. It's about carrying those lessons with you, even when the person is gone.
Absolutely. And it's a beautiful parallel, isn't it? Both Rumi and Ella, they experience how love can change you, even when it's messy, even when it hurts. And in the end, they both come to this deeper understanding, not just about love, but about themselves too.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the 40 rules of love, it leaves us with a lot to think about. It reminds us that love, however it shows up, it can push us to grow, to really discover who we are. It might challenge us, shake things up, maybe even break our hearts a little. But through all that, we might just find a deeper truth, a more authentic way of being ourselves.
And just like Ella and Rumi, we might realize the journey itself is the real gift.
So could exploring your own capacity for love, even the messy parts, lead you to discover something new about yourself, something you never expected? It's worth considering, don't you think?